AM 630. WMAL.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is 5:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and Brian Neiman is in the house today. How are you?
Pretty good.
We should get right to it, because we got, sort of a special thing here, don't you think?
What are you talking about?
Oh, Mitt Romney.
Oh, Mitt Romney.
We interviewed Mitt Romney yesterday.
Comes around every once in a while. Talks to all kinds of radio stations across the country. Oh, no, he doesn't do that, does he?
No, but he talked to ours.
That's right.
He was in Virginia yesterday campaigning, and we got a few minutes with him on the phone, and we talked about a myriad of issues. We talked about Virgil Goode and how that might impact the outcome of the race in Virginia. And we also talked about the situation in Benghazi. Here's how it went.
I'd like to start with a follow-up to something you said recently. What do you think it is that the administration is not telling us about the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi?
Well, they came out and said that it was a part of a response to a film that was being shown here. I think we're reluctant to admit what we now know, which is it was a terrorist attack. And I think the president has refrained from even using that word himself, unless he has today for the first time. But Secretary of State Clinton mentioned it, and it's been mentioned frequently. This was an attack by terrorists. It killed our ambassador and other members of our mission there in Benghazi. And it represents a very troubling development in that part of the world.
Any idea why it took them so long to get their story straight on this?
I'm not going to speculate on how it was they failed to level with the American people. I can only imagine that there were political implications of what they were going to say, and they sent out the messengers saying, "Hey, this was just a response to a demonstration about the film, and it was spontaneous." And I think it was John McCain who very early on said, you don't bring RPGs to a spontaneous demonstration. Right. And it was pretty clear to most people that this was a terrorist event, and I think now that's pretty well confirmed.
Governor, to the fiscal cliff, automatic cuts to defense are set to kick in right after the new year. Jobs, a lot of defense jobs right here in the D.C. area, Northern Virginia, and in Maryland. People are worried about their jobs. And I know you've said, hey, we have to look at deficits. But as president, what would you do about sequestration?
Well, sequestration was a bad idea in the first place, and the idea of going through with it is even worse. The idea of cutting our military by $1 trillion, particularly as the world is not a safe place, as our veterans have been not receiving the care that they deserve, it's just an unacceptable path. And the president and Congress should come together. The president is the leader in this regard. He should bring people together and say, okay, look, let's hammer out a deal here, either to give a 6-month runway, if you will, until the new president is able to put in place a permanent solution, but or to permanently solve it one way or the other. But the idea that we're going to potentially have a layoff of some 137,000 people in Virginia, military cuts, that's unacceptable.
All right. Second quarter GDP was just downgraded to 1.3%. I'm just curious. I know you think you're going to win the election, but what do you think the economy would look like 2 years from now if there is a second term for President Obama?
Well, I believe that you would see continued extraordinarily slow economic growth and perhaps even contraction. I certainly hope not, but I think you'd see slow economic growth. I think you'd see high levels of unemployment continue. I would expect to see trillion-dollar deficits. At some point, I think you're going to see businesses lose confidence in investing in America and start taking their capital and their eyes elsewhere. I think you're going to see America on the road to Greece unless we change course. And this president represents the status quo. His economic policies are a continuation of the last 4 years, and I don't think we can afford 4 more years like the last 4 years.
Well, the economy may be slow, but the stock market seems to be doing well. A lot of people say it's because of quantitative easing. Do you think that Ben Bernanke is helping or hurting the economy?
Well, I don't think the quantitative easing that he's doing is helping us long term. I think it's having very limited effect on the economy now. I think the second round of quantitative easing was likewise ineffective. I think these last 2 rounds have not done what he hoped they would do. And I believe they put in jeopardy the value of our currency down the road, and they make inflation a bigger risk. And that's one of the reasons why some people invest in the stock market, which is, gee, if bonds are paying almost no interest, And if there's a high risk of inflation down the road, why you invest in stocks, because those tend to be more able to rise up as a result of inflation.
Right. You know, it's going to be a tight election the way it's shaping up right now, especially so it looks in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where every vote counts. What would you say to anyone right now in the Commonwealth of Virginia who might be thinking of voting for third-party candidate Virgil Goode?
Well, I must admit I don't believe in throwing away votes, and so I think people ought to decide that it's either going to be President Obama leading this country for the next 4 years, or it'll be me. And if they like the status quo, if they think that the last 4 years are a good model for the next 4 years, why they should vote for President Obama. If they believe instead that we can do better, that we need to protect our military, that we need to get on track to a balanced budget, and that we should have a pro-growth agenda that creates jobs, then they should vote for me. But I know other people will have different ideas, but this is an important time. We're deciding what America is going to be, not just for the next 4 years,
right,
but for a decade or two, or perhaps longer. So it's a time to make your vote count.
Well, Governor, we appreciate you being with us. Just one question, though, that people ask us to ask you, and that is whether or not, since you always come across as such a really polite guy, do you have a sense of the jugular, and will you toughen up during the upcoming debates against Barack Obama?
Well, I frequently point out the differences between us, and you will hear that very pointedly expressed in the upcoming debate.
All right. Governor, it's great to have you on. Thanks very much. We appreciate it.
Brian, good to be with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Good luck to you.
Thanks.